Kenny and Kathleen's home is one of thousands in Ireland which will fall down due to unsafe levels of mica minerals used in the blocks that built it. The blocks used were inadequately regulated, and now families are in turmoil over the dangerous state of their homes. Kathleen will be pension age next year, as Kenny is now. The government says that their proposed redress bill will cover 90% of rebuilding costs of mica homes. The bill did not undergo pre-legislative scrutiny to identify and address shortcomings. The Mica Action Group claims that there are at least 35 problems with the bill. These include the fact that it does not address blocks used in the foundations of houses. Advocates say that the average homeowner will not receive anything close to 90% redress. They say shortfalls will mean tens of thousands of euros on top of spiralling mortgage rates for unsafe homes. Only a fraction of mica homeowners have signed on to the scheme as a result. Mica advocates point to the pyrite scandal in Leinster, where 100% redress was provided, as well as accommodation for families during rebuilding. They say banks will not lend to mica families for the shortfall, and that insurance companies will not pay out. With that in mind, the question of where people will find this money remains unanswered. There is no clarity as to the plan's rollout, the number of available builders, or the time frame for repair of homes that threaten to fall in on people's heads. In episode 2 of our mica documentary, Kenny and Kathleen speak to us about the toll it has taken on the lives of people who should be preparing for retirement.
Born and reared in this area. This is Glentower, Carndonagh. I was born and reared just at the end of that road there. My great-grandmother was born in that house down there, and my father was born over just across the river, and that's where he lived until we never left the area. And Kenny was born in Bridgend, which is about 20 miles away.
20 miles away, and Unassuming too.
Yes, still an
Unassuming people.
And we're born and reared here. And this site, Kenny was working in the alcohol factory in Carndonagh, and it closed down, and he was working there for about 2 years. And he got redundancy money, which is the first time when I thought in our married life we'd have money. And he bought the site. And it was only time my father had loads of land and wanted to give him a site, but he was very independent and wanted to buy this site. And I remember the day well. I used to walk out and in past. We were living in a house out here, and I used to think, oh my God, we'll never be able to afford to build a house on this site. Elaine was only young at the time. But we eventually, in 2006, we were both in our late 40s, and we decided that both of us was good jobs, and we saved a bit of money, and we decided we would try and build a house on the site. We would leave it to Elaine. That was basically what we said. We'd build this house, small house, and Kenny done all the woodwork and the roof, him and his brother, and then done a lot of work for themselves. And Kenny actually contracted it, and he just went, because he was in the building trade, he was a joiner, he was able to do an awful lot of the work to it, and we took out a mortgage of 50,000, which we shall have paid next year, and we'll be mortgage free. But that was our dream, and we moved in 2008, and must have been 2010-12, was it, Kenny? We started noticing cracks, but everybody said that's settling cracks, and that's all I ever hear. I didn't know nothing about building, so I presumed. But then people started talking about mica, and Kenny said to me, I think I'm going to get somebody to check and have a look at it. I want to know one way or the other. And I never for 1 minute thought that it would be mica, or that's what they were talking about. And the man came, and the engineer came, done a walk around. It was 2015, and the report came back and said he was nearly 100% sure. The only way he could be sure was to take samples and send them away to get tested, but that would incur a lot more financial. You'd have to pay for it, and it was very expensive.
But at that time we had a few blocks left over, and they were lying about there, and I checked the blocks myself even, and that they were crumbly. So I just knew then that we had mica in the house, and that was it, you know.
I just thought it was the most, now I know it sounds terrible, but I just was so devastated by this. Was our life's savings, because everything we bought, and that's we just thought, we're only going to do it once, we're going to put on the good windows, we're going to try and put loads of insulation in the house, trying to make it as easy to run when we got older, because we were older anyway. But I used to come from work, and you'd look at that, you drive in there and you just see that gable. You just couldn't get away from it. I just took all the joy out of the house. And you just get, every time you look out, you think, oh God, is that another crack? Sometimes then you just don't look at it because you're scared to look at it. Sometimes you just can't get away from it. It's there all the time. There's no way you can get away from it. This is supposed to be your safe place, and this is supposed to be where you can relax, and this is where you can live and be happy. And when you go out and look, and loads of times I often thought maybe if we filled the cracks and painted it, it might be better looking, but it makes no difference. They open up again then. It's
because Kenny, you were showing me just outside that you do work on the house pretty much on an annual basis. Was that
every year, just before the winter, filling the cracks, you know, just to stop the water getting in and frost freezing and then expanding, which would make the cracks more or less explode, and it would all happen a lot quicker. You know, it's just prolonging that
agony.
That's just
what it is. Sometimes we think, oh, will we go for this scheme, and will we just try and take down that gable? Will we fix it ourselves, or will we pay this $6,000? You know, it's $6,000 you have to get an engineer, and it's so hard to know what to do right. And at the end of the day, all we ever wanted was just to get our house fixed. And even when that 90-10 scheme came in, I just thought, like, that 10%, we could have handled that. But sure, every time you went, it was delays and it was money out. And you started to wonder then, no, we were that age in life, you thought, well, are we going to have to remortgage, or what can we do? Or are we just going to have to, so we've kind of been in limbo since then. We're waiting, every year you're thinking, oh, it's going to be this year, we're going to find out. And now it seems to have just, everybody seems to have forgotten about it. I went to that, then when they were putting them amendments on the mica crowd, you know, like that scheme that they're putting on now is better than the last scheme. But there was, you know, people needed to be able to downsize. You didn't need to be able to, all we want is to be able to get our house fixed without it costing us any money, and to get on with living our life and just be knowing that our house is warm and safe. Even to heat the house now is getting more and more expensive because of the cracks and the winter time, you know, it seems to be just throwing good money after bad, which we don't have now because Jenny's pension age, I will be pension age now in February. And that's our limit. That's our working life over. There's nothing more we can do. And like, where do we go? We can't make any more money. We just have a limit, and that's just to pay, just to live on now, and that's what's going to be. So we really need the government to put on 100% redress scheme, that people, and to take over the scheme, come and assess people's houses, say to them, this is what we're going to do, and we're guarantee that this will last. That's all we're asking for.
Because from the outside, it seems particularly unfair that families and couples and individuals have done all the right things. They've worked their whole life. They put into, say, for a mortgage, got the mortgage, in many cases build their own houses, you know, to their own specs or whatever they wanted to do. It must have such an impact on you personally, like, as in this must be such a constant concern. It's a
constant worry. Anything goes wrong with the house, or anything that you know, the normal bills, like at the minute our central heating isn't working because the the boiler needs to be replaced, it's broken. And you're wondering, will we put on a good boiler? Will we put on a second-hand boiler? Do we need to try and hold off for the money we needed to build the house, to fix the house? It's just, you just can't get away from it.
The end result of the house might have to be demolished, and why keep pumping money into it and putting new stuff in it. And you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
The boiler has broke out there now. I don't know how to get one just to keep me going meantime.
Or to put a new one.
Or get a new one.
Yeah.
And because it could be going on for a while. You have to pay a plumber to put it on, and then you'll have to pay to get it taken out again. Or everything disconnected again. And it's kind of pointless nearly putting one on now at this stage, just to see how we stand. We're not sure how we stand at the moment.
Yeah. For us, it's going on since 2015. This is 2022. There seems to be no end to it. Everything's in stalemate now at the minute. This other new scheme hasn't been up and running. I feel like everybody's letting us down. The government has let us down. The Donegal County Council has let us down. The block makers, who never once admitted that it was their fault, and that they say that the builder said that they did it according to government specification. And if you made something to the government specification, and then you had a problem, and if I was the block maker, I would have went to you and said, well, we will do whatever we can. We'll go with you to tell the government, because this was their specifications, so they were in the wrong. So who was in the wrong? The government and the amendments they shot down going after the concrete makers. So, we feel like we've been let down by the block maker, the Donegal County Council, who are not helping in any way or pushing for the scheme or pushing for the people. And the government, we've been let down because it's our constitutional right to have a home. And when you have a home, you're entitled to have a home built to last more than 14 years. When you look around Donegal, you see old wall states of houses that were built hundreds of years ago. They didn't have anything fancy then. Was manual labour and blocks, stones. They're still standing. Yet our houses all cracked in 14 years. There's something badly wrong. Somebody was at fault. Somebody should stand up and say, it was our fault, we'll fix it, and that's it. That's all we want. We want our home fixed. We want to be able to live the rest of our days, whatever it may be, in a house that we know that we created and that we've looked after, and to leave it till our next generation.
No, we're just supplied with bad blocks, and there's no regulation really. To make sure we're getting proper blocks. And, I think when you're supplied, you buy something, you want it to be right, and when it's not right, somebody has to answer. I think it's up to the local council to regulate these things, make sure everything's done properly, and it wasn't done. No, the council seem to be taking a back seat in this.
I worked in the supermarket. I worked in Super Value in the deli, and I worked there for 14 years. And it was unbelievable how much regulation. The health woman, the EIQ woman, just appeared, put on her coat, walked in, took samples of what you had made. And that was, any product you had made, and took it away and got it analysed. If there was anything wrong with it, you were notified right away if it wasn't up to standard. They would close down your kitchen. You weren't allowed to do that product again. So I presumed that when you were, I didn't know much about the building trade, but I presumed that in all industry that the government had the same kind of regulation. But obviously it wasn't. It seemed to be self-regulation. But like if I had self-regulation, there's days there's nobody to you have nobody to answer to. So these companies were producing blocks that weren't of standard, and there was nobody checking them, and there was nobody answering. They still haven't answered till the people that they sold the blocks to. I felt that the Mica Action crowd had put up so many amendments, and they weren't even addressed at all. One of the amendments was people have been living in these houses maybe 20 years. Their family reared their bigger houses. Times were different when they built these houses, and now they want to downsize. And the way the cost of living has got, you'd understand that people want to downsize, but they're not allowed to downsize. They're not allowed to cover the foundations. I think that is. I don't understand very much, but if your foundations isn't good, there's, why would you build new blocks and good blocks on top of unsafe foundations? That's a recipe for disaster. And I have no.
It's just a repeat performance. The same thing over again.
We just feel like we're in limbo. We don't know what to do. Do you go ahead and apply for the scheme, or I know a lot of people in this area have just decided enough is enough. They're going to have to pay anyway, so they're taking out their outer block and fixing their homes and hoping for the best that they get a bit longer term out of it, because there is no guarantee. There's not, if your house, if they do the outer leaf, and if your founds if they're bad, the engineer won't sign off and say this house. You can't, at the end of the day, we're older now, and if we wanted to sell this house, there's not a hope in hell we could sell this house. Not even for the money we put into it, to even get that money back to try and live in a smaller house. It had affected me very badly now. I still find it very stressful. I still find it very hard to see any light at the end of the tunnel. I have suffered a lot with anxiety from this, which I used to never be. That my dream had come true when we moved into this house. We just loved this house. We had our grandchildren used to come here on Christmas. Elaine and the kids used to come Christmas Eve. We had Santa here. It was just fantastic. And then now, even my grandchildren's a bit older now, but my youngest grandson, who's 9, he'll say, "Granny, why did you buy them blocks?" And I'll say, "We didn't know at the time." He doesn't understand, but he's reared now, listening to mica. And he's out there and he'll say, "Are they cracking any more?" And I'll say, a child of 9 years of age should not have that. But that's the life they're living. It's he's an expert in COVID, and he's now an expert on mica as well. At 9 years of age. Yes, he's a smart kid. But that's, even yet he'd say, "But why did you buy them blocks?" And he'd say, "But we didn't know." He can't understand why we would buy these bad blocks. And then he'd say, "But I seen that on the TV, and yours isn't crumbling yet, Granny." He's always trying to make you feel better.
If you're away somewhere and you're having a great time or something, away from the house, away at a friend's house, or away out for a night or something, when you come back and you look at the wall, it just brings it all back to you.
90% on the scheme that they have on now at the minute, you have it's such a long process. It needs to be taken over by somebody. They need to address, just look at the houses, see the worst ones, start fixing some of the worst ones, start fixing some of the ones that's not so bad, so they don't get so worse. No, it's lingering on and on and on. It is so punishing on your mental health. If you knew that even next year, the year after, that you could get back to living your life, and your house would be secure, get your house fixed. It wouldn't take that long. That once they start, they'll finish it, and somebody's going to come and take control of it. We built this house from scratch. There was no house here. We built this house, we set all them trees, and everything you see here, this was bare land. Now, it's going to end up, there's going to be bushes and trees, and there's going to be no house. Is that the way it's going to end up in a few years' time? Are we going to get our lifetime out of it? Or are we, sometimes I see little bits of black mould in different parts of the house, and I just think, is this the way it's going? Is it going to get worse and worse? As I get older, there's no way I can paint this again or clean it again. Why are we going to have to move out? What is going to happen?
It's not worthwhile painting. You think to yourself, why bother painting? Or decorating?
We feel like we've been left. This was all rushed through the Dáil before they went on holidays. They went all off on holidays. We were all left in limbo. Now they're coming back again. Now they're so busy with the cost of living. They're keeping their jobs and giving themselves 6,000 raises. We're still stuck on the same hell that we were when they went on holidays and had a brilliant holiday without any worries. We were here. Even on the good days, you went away for a run, you come back, and there's the cracks. Now you're wondering as it's starting to get cold, are they going to split more? Some days I don't even look at them because I could nearly cry when I see them. And
the thing is, it's not our fault or anybody else that has mica. It's not our fault. We didn't create it. It's government regulation, block suppliers. That's who's to blame.
You got to the stage where you felt enough is enough, and when that 90-10 scheme, I just thought, oh thank God they have a scheme on now, because I really couldn't cope anymore. But sure, it was only like a 70-40, it was no way, it was a 90-10.